The creators of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins, and the writers have decided that Matthew is going to be portrayed as on the spectrum of autism. Now, a lot of people throughout the last few years have really either had an issue with this or loved it a lot, and a lot of people have resonated with it. We've even seen that a musician with Asperger's was able to come in and play a part of the section of the music for season 1. So today we're going to go through 3 reasons that the Chosen team could at least think that it's plausible that Matthew could be on the autism spectrum. So let's jump into this. First things first is Matthew's career as a tax collector. This would have been a very big deal in the time of Jesus. Tax collectors were not like we think of them today. They were very mean, they stole money, and they were a very bad look on a Jewish person that was helping out Rome. As we've been talking about over the last few weeks, Matthew did choose this position, and in doing so, he betrayed the Jewish people, and this was a big deal for everybody around him. And so why would he do this? One would be that he had a very high proficiency in math.
Were you that good with numbers or that bad with Torah? I was proficient in both.
And counting money and dealing with equations. This was something that he was readily very good at. And now we don't know this from scripture, but to be a tax collector, you had to have some sort of skill in that realm. Remember, this is during a time when most people are illiterate, they don't know how to do all of these things. And while Matthew was stealing money from his people, it's most likely that he at least gave Rome what they needed and then accurately took more beyond that point.
I'm a bad person.
So it's quite plausible to think that Matthew would have been good at math and kind of good in that realm of being a tax collector. This gives us a little bit of insight, more than we get from most of the disciples, about who Matthew is. That he would be a thinker, that he would be intellectual to some extent. But choosing to be a tax collector, you would have had to have either extreme greed, or you would have understood that this was just a position to get you ahead in life.
I can't forgive it. I'll never forgive it.
And people with Asperger's or that are on the autism spectrum can often kind of separate these things from emotion, not really understanding how it affects other people, but just seeing the outcome of the benefits that it could bring.
Next.
The second reason is the way that Matthew wrote his gospel. Now, for one example, if we look at the very first chapter of all the gospels, Matthew starts out so detailed in the way that he's talking about Jesus Christ's genealogy.
Why wouldn't it need to be precise? Mine will be precise.
Yes, I believe that this gospel is written this way because Matthew is writing primarily to Jews, and they would find this genealogy very helpful in understanding who Jesus was. But I also think that Matthew leaned more towards the detail side of things. And so The Chosen, I think, picked up on some of that, and they really recognized, at least Dallas did, that this could be a trait led in the spectrum of autism. And the Chosen team decided, because of these first 2 reasons, that Matthew was a facts guy, that he really understood how things work and the way that things are put together. And lastly, the Chosen team thought that this would be a great way to humanize Matthew. This has been their job for all of the disciples, including the hardest one, which I think is going to be Judas. Now, with Matthew, they had to humanize him a bit more to show he's more than just a tax collector. He's more than just someone who wrote a gospel. This is who Matthew was, and this is how he acted. And that's the job of the Chosen, to expound on what we know from scripture and not tell us the truth, but tell us a possibility. And obviously, this has been the case in the first 2 seasons of the Chosen. So many people have related to Matthew. If we put Matthew in the thumbnail of one of our videos, people generally respond better because they relate more to Matthew than they do a lot of the other characters in The Chosen, and this has been a theme since season 1. And not only is he widely accepted, but more so by the autism community, the people who are in this and walk this day to day. They really see the work that has been put in by Paris and by Dallas and the understanding that comes with this character. And so while this is not a defining feature of who Matthew is in scripture, and it's really not a defining feature of who Matthew is in The Chosen either, I think this does add an element of complexity and humanness to this character overall. But in making this decision, the Chosen team always goes back to the exact same question. Is this at least plausible? Could this have been the case? And while we didn't have the scientific research that we have today back in the 1st century, we couldn't have understood when people have a mental illness or when different things are happening in their lives. I mean, look at the past 10 years and how far ADHD has come in research and understanding it. There's no way that we would have known in the 1st century if any of these characters had any sort of mental difference, right? And so for us, of course, this could be plausible, but we have no idea.
I really like how it felt relevant, like the mental health issues that she was going through? Like, or what could be seen as mental health issues today?
In the scriptures, we have very, very little evidence for anything these disciples did. We get a general gist of some of them, such as Peter probably being the most prominent, this hard-headed, brash, kind of almost bipolar person. But overall, the rest of the disciples, we maybe get 1 or 2 sentences at most. So it's really hard to say how all of these people acted. We have to infer if we're making a show like this. But what do I think? I think that yes, this could be plausible. Is it needed in the show? No. Does it hurt the show? I don't think so. And I think in many ways it helps a community that is often ostracized to come into the fold and to see what this show is doing in a new light. I know some of you don't agree with this decision to have Matthew on the spectrum, and that's fine. I think you can have your opinion, and you might be right. Matthew may not have been on the spectrum, but I don't think it hurts anything with salvation. I don't think it hurts anything in scripture. It's just a creative choice. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much to our patrons who are just amazing. Really, you guys are the backbone to this channel. And they're getting a podcast early, by the way. They're about 5 weeks ahead on a podcast that we've been putting out weekly. So we'd love for you to be a part of that. If you want to head over to our Patreon, you can just sign up with the link in the description below. Anyway, hope you like this video. Keep living this snipe life, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.